Welcome to the AFL 2018 season reviews. We'll be looking to break down each club's season and assessing how each team performed compared to expectation. This is Ryan from AFL Access, and this is a 2018 review of St Kilda. With the Saints ending their 2017 campaign on a slight sour note, going down to eventual premiers Richmond by 41 points, most plaudits could recognise the continued progression of the rebuilding team, despite having one less win than the year prior. It should be noted that even though they finished with one less win compared with 2016, their percentage had increased by almost 1%. This is even more impressive when you see that they managed to reduce their average losing margin from 47.1 points every loss down to 36.7 points. Essentially, they managed to stay in the contest for longer periods of time, which is a good indicator of how a team can be developing. So despite finishing the season on the previously mentioned sour note, it still appeared that the Saints were indeed marching in.
When the Saints go marching in, when the Saints go marching in.
It was with that sentiment that when the 2018 season began, and with 2 years of closely missing the finals, it was expected of them to finally break into the top 8 after a 6-year hiatus, last making it in 2011. The season began as well as could be hoped, beating the Brisbane Lions by a cool 25 points. After this, however, the Saints promptly and swiftly marched out. St Kilda wouldn't win another game until round 13, 12 matches after their promising start. To make matters worse, some of these games could easily have been won had the players only remembered how to kick a goal. For 8 matches in a row, the Saints kicked more behinds than goals, completely sapping the team of any momentum they gained within games, which ultimately led to some blowouts, leaving their average losing margin 39.2 points. Or just over 6 goals. It meant that the club would finish the year with only 4 wins, 1 draw, and a miserly percentage of 75.6%. It has been, for all intents and purposes, a massive step backwards for the developing club. They have conceded just more than a goal per game, and staggeringly scored less than 2 goals per game when compared with 2017. So, what happened to the marching Saints? And, more importantly, where did they march to? The team has had a relatively small injury list for most of the year. Dylan Roberton collapsing with an irregular heartbeat in round 4, not returning for the rest of the year, did leave them short on experience and rebound from their backline. And despite being a loss in almost any team in the competition, was able to be covered fairly well. Josh Bruce hasn't played since round 3, having both stress fractures in his back and a broken leg, which starved the forward line of it all. Despite Bruce's outstanding 2015, where he kicked 50 goals, he's mostly been in the team for structure, as he's not become the match winner that the Saints were hoping for. Paddy McCartan has also spent much of the year on the sidelines, but even when in the team, he averaged less than a goal per game. So despite losing some key players to their structures, they were able to cover these losses adequately. When looking at their 22 most played players for the year, they averaged 74% disposal efficiency. The club averages 59.9 tackles, 51.7 inside 50s, and 22 scoring shots per game, scoring 42.5% every time they enter their attacking arc. These stats seem to tell a different story though, and would suggest that they had a decent year. It's when you look at one other statistic that you realise what derailed their season. 43.8%. That is St Kilda's goal accuracy during their winless stretch at the start of the year. I'll let that sink in for a moment. When kicking for goal, this team could only score a goal 43.8% of the time, and that is not including when they kick it out of bounds on the full, so that figure is still being generous. That is an astonishingly pathetic statistic for an AFL club. It gets worse when you consider that out of 22 matches the Saints have played this year, they scored more behinds than goals in 15 games. I will concede that teams can go through periods where they struggle to convert, but this tendency usually only lasts as long as about 3 games. For a team to be inaccurate for 15 games in a single year though is a deplorably embarrassing effort from both the players and football department. Now whether the issue comes from a lack of fitness, skill, or mental stability, I couldn't say, and nor am I going to accuse any one of these areas specifically, but it is quite clear that the football department has failed this year. There has been a breakdown of communication and a lack of awareness on how to repair this alarming figure. By the time that the club had somewhat fixed the issue, or at least improved it, the season was unsalvageable. I would also like to point out that at season's end, the club has also delisted Nathan Freeman. Freeman was finally able to make his debut at AFL level after being in the system for 5 years, and having a spate of hamstring injuries at both Collingwood and the Saints. He was to be the second best feel-good story of the year, behind only Alex Johnson of the Sydney Swans, and averaged 16.5 disposals, 2.5 tackles, and a scoring shot per game. A solid start, and, to be honest, some solid numbers for any defender. It begs the question why the Saints kept him for 3 years to be able to play senior footy, only to turf him after doing just that. I'm not alone in saying that he probably deserved a 1-year contract to see if he could stay AFL fit, and whether he was then worth keeping around. As it stands though, a lot of resources may have been used for another club to reap the benefits. The other confusing delisting so far this offseason has been that of Hugh Goddard. Goddard has been injury riddled since he was drafted by the club in 2014 and was a promising key position backman. Since then, he's lost 2 years of his career to injury and spent this year continuing his development in the VFL. To be fair, he hasn't been setting the world on fire as he looks to regain confidence in his body at the age of 21, but there have been signs of improvement as he's increased his output and influence on games over the course of the year. It would have been nice to see how he developed after another injury-free pre-season to see whether he could be an AFL standard defender, but the Saints clearly don't want to find out. Now, the Saints are undertaking a review of their football program, which happens every year at season's end. This review, however, is one of those club-defining ones where they look at every single position within the club and determine whether the person filling that role has helped to further the club or not. Richmond had one in 2016, and Geelong famously had one in 2006. In many fans' eyes, Alan Richardson is not the man to lead St Kilda to premiership glory. However, I'm not so quick to write him off after what appears to be a horrendous season on the surface. As we discovered earlier, when you look a little deeper into this team, they are still on the right track in terms of at least getting to finals footy. They lowered their average losing margin again, they maintained their pressure style game, and their general field skills were par for the course. Their greatest downfall was their goal kicking accuracy, which could be remedied during the preseason. I do feel that Richardson and the club need to make some personal changes within the football department, but they do have a list that can make the 8. However, I do not think that this current list of players can win a premiership, be it next year or 2020. In fact, I don't think this list can win one at all and will struggle to make even the top 4. They need to recruit some future stars in this draft, and it would be nice to finally land a big fish through free agency as well, to complement the mongrel type players the list is mostly made up of. For 2018, I rate St Kilda a 3 out of 10. Despite still being a competitive team, this was a year that they needed to at least get close to the top 8 again. Instead, they slid drastically down the ladder. Do you agree with the review and rating of the Saints? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a like on the video and make sure to subscribe and ring that bell to receive notifications when new content comes out. This has been your AFL Access.